Hello everyone, my name is Sean. I am 27 years old, and I come from a small town of northern Jordan. For most of my life, English was like a wall that separated me from the future. It was the one thing that made me feel small in big rooms, quiet when I wanted to speak, and invisible when I wanted to shine. But what if I told you that, just 5 months ago, I could barely introduce myself in English? What if I told you that simple sentences like, "Where are you from?" or "What do you do?" made my heart race and my mouth go dry? What if I told you that I once lost the opportunity of a lifetime just because I couldn't answer one question in English? This is my real story. Not of perfect grammar or high test scores, but of persistence, frustration, small victories, and one final breakthrough that changed everything. So, if you are someone who struggles with English, if you feel embarrassed every time you open your mouth, or if you have tried to learn but feel stuck, this story is for you. Let me take you back to where it all began. For the longest time, English felt like background noise in my life. I heard it in movies, on YouTube, and in school. But it never belonged to me. I could barely understand some words, yes. I could fill in blanks in grammar exercises. But speaking, that was a different world. That was the world of other people, people who were rich enough to travel, smart enough to study abroad, or confident enough to sound like natives. I was none of those. My real wake-up call came when I was 26. I had just finished a software development course, and after months of practicing, coding and working on small projects, I finally applied for a job at a tech startup that worked with clients from America and Canada. I got shortlisted. They liked my portfolio. They liked my project ideas. They scheduled a Zoom interview. I couldn't believe it. I remember jumping up from my chair and running to my mother with the biggest smile on my face. Finally, on my interview day, 2 people were on the call, both of them are Canadian. They smiled politely and started with the usual introductions. Then they asked me, "So, Sean, tell us a bit about yourself." I froze. I knew what I wanted to say, but the words wouldn't come. I stuttered, panicked. All I managed to say was something like, software. I good. Project, nice. I could see it in their eyes. They were confused and uncomfortable. The rest of the interview was a blur. I didn't understand most of their questions. I gave short, awkward answers. And at the end, one of them said, "Thank you for your time, Sean. We will be in touch." That night, I sat in my room, in the dark, staring at the ceiling. I wasn't angry at them. I was angry at myself. Angry for wasting years, thinking English didn't matter. Angry for skipping speaking practice because it was too hard. Angry because I knew that, in terms of skills, I was ready. But English was the barrier I had ignored for too long. That night changed something in me. I made a decision. I didn't want to be silent anymore. I made a promise to myself. The next morning, I wrote something on a piece of paper and stuck it on the wall in front of my desk. It said, 5 months. No excuses. I will speak English fluently. I gave myself a deadline. I didn't care about perfect grammar. I didn't care about native-like pronunciation. I just wanted to speak without fear. And most importantly, I made a rule: no more waiting for the perfect method. No more depending on schools, classes, or magic apps. I would create my own system. Let me share everything I did step by step. I will break this into parts, because each stage of my journey taught me something important. And if you follow The same system, or even parts of it, I believe you will see results much faster than you expect. Part 1. Learning to think in English. Most people start by memorizing vocabulary. I didn't, because I already knew some words. What I didn't know was how to use them. I realized something very important. The problem was not knowledge, it was implementation. So, for the first 30 days, I did one thing every single day. I practiced thinking in English. First, I chose 50 daily use sentences and phrases like, I am going to the store. Can you repeat that, please? I don't understand this. I am learning English. I printed them out, taped them to my wall, and repeated each one 10 times every morning. Then, I started talking to myself. Yes, out loud. While brushing my teeth, I am brushing my teeth. It's cold. I need coffee. While walking, the road is empty. I can hear birds. The sky is clear. At first, it felt ridiculous. But I kept doing it. And after a week, something changed. I didn't need to translate anymore. Before, I would think in Arabic, then try to find the English words. But now, I was starting to see the English sentence before speaking. That was the first win. It was small, but very powerful. Part 2. The mimic the masters method. Pronunciation was my biggest fear. I didn't want to sound fake, but I also didn't want to sound like a robot. So I created a system, now called Mimic the Masters. Every night, I picked a short video from YouTube about 2 to 5 minutes long. Sometimes a TED Talk, sometimes a clip from a TV show, sometimes a podcast. I listened, then wrote down 5 to 10 phrases that sounded natural. I played one sentence at a time, paused, and repeated it exactly. Same speed, same tone, same feeling. For example, from a podcast, I was really nervous before the meeting. I repeated, I was really nervous before the meeting. I repeat that 10 times. Out loud. No exceptions. This was not just pronunciation practice. It was confidence training. Because the more I copied their tone, the more I felt like I was part of the language, not just someone trying to learn it. After 2 weeks, I noticed a difference. My voice sounded more confident. My sentences were smoother. And people started saying, "Wow, your English is sounding better." That small comment, that was fuel for the fire. One of the biggest mistakes I had made in the past was trying to memorize English words like I was preparing for an exam. I would sit down with a list, advantage, opportunity, benefit, responsibility, and so on. I would repeat them over and over, and still, a week later, I could barely remember them. So I changed my approach. Instead of memorizing words, I started creating stories. Every day, I picked 5 new words, not random ones, but words I had seen in a video or heard in a podcast. Then, I created a short story using all 5 words in context. For example, let's say my 5 words were apartment, noisy, neighbor, complain, solution. I wrote a story like this. Last night, my apartment was so noisy. My neighbor was playing loud music. I couldn't sleep. This morning, I decided to complain to the building manager. He said he would talk to my neighbor and find a solution. I read the story out loud 5 times. Then I tried to tell it from memory. Then I made up a new version with similar words. What happened here is, the words stuck in my mind. I didn't just know them, I could use them. I did this every day. After 3 months, I wasn't just collecting words, I was building tools for my English journey. Part 4. Conversation without a partner. I lived in a place where few people spoke English. Finding a conversation partner wasn't easy. But I didn't let that stop me. I created imaginary conversations. Each morning, I picked a topic. Let's say, ordering food in a restaurant. Then I played both roles, customer and waiter. Customer: "Hi, can I see the menu, please?" Waiter: "Of course, here you go." Customer: "What do you recommend today?" Waiter: "The grilled chicken is very popular." And so on. I practiced dozens of situations, like interviews, phone calls, asking for directions, giving a presentation. At first, I wrote them down. Later, I acted them out naturally. This method worked wonders, because when I finally spoke to real people, I had already practiced the situations in my head hundreds of times. One day, I had to speak to a client from Canada. I was nervous, but when he said, "Tell me a bit about your recent work," the answer came out easily. Why? Because I had practiced that sentence at least 50 times. Part 5. The 2-hour English rule. I made a rule for myself. Every single day, I had to spend at least 2 hours doing something in English. No excuses. Some days I listened to podcasts for 1 hour and spoke for another. Some days I watched a movie and practiced shadowing. Some days I wrote in my journal, then read it out loud. Even when I was tired, I still showed up. I would whisper English sentences to myself while lying in bed. I would describe what I was doing while brushing my teeth. Why was this so important? Because English became part of my identity, not just a subject I was learning. It was like going to the gym. Even if I didn't feel like it, I still trained. After 3 months, English didn't feel foreign anymore. It felt familiar. It felt like home. Part 6. Grammar without fear. Grammar scared me for a long time. The rules, the exceptions, the confusing verb tenses, it was overwhelming. But then, I changed my approach. I stopped trying to understand grammar first. I focused on noticing grammar in real use. I searched online. I read explanations. I understood that when we talk about an action that started in the past and continues now, we use the present perfect continuous. This made grammar feel alive. It wasn't just a rule in a book, it was a tool I could use. I started keeping a small grammar journal. Every time I noticed something interesting, a new tense, a tricky preposition, a phrasal verb, I wrote it down with an example. Slowly, my grammar improved, not because I memorized rules, but because I observed patterns. Part 7. The day I stopped translating. There was one day I will never forget. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was walking in the park, and I saw a little girl drop her ice cream. She looked at her mom and said, "It fell." That's it. 2 simple words. But in that moment, something clicked in my brain. I realized I didn't translate her sentence in my head. I just understood it. It was the first time I had fully processed English the way I process my native language. From that day forward, I noticed more moments like that. I could listen to an entire video and follow along without pausing. I could think in English during conversations. I didn't have to plan every sentence. That was the day I knew I was not learning English anymore. I was living in it. Part 8. The interview that changed everything. 6 months after my journey began, I applied again. Not to the same company, but to an even better one. A remote-first tech company with clients around the world. The kind of job I once thought was out of my reach. This time, when I got the interview email, I didn't panic. I smiled. I prepared the way I always had, by talking to myself, shadowing native speakers, writing answers, and saying them out loud. I visualized the interview like an athlete before a big game. The day came. I logged into Zoom. Interviewers are on the screen. Native speakers. But this time, I was calm. Tell us about yourself. I smiled. Sure. I am Sean. I am a self-taught developer from Jordan. I have worked on several freelance projects involving web development, and I am passionate about building simple solutions for real-world problems. Their eyes lit up. We talked for over 40 minutes. I understood every question. I answered clearly. I even cracked a joke, and they laughed. When the call ended, I knew. This time, I didn't fail. 2 days later, I got the email. I read it 3 times to make sure. We are pleased to offer you the position. I sat there, phone in hand, eyes wet. I did it. The first thing I did with my salary was simple. I went out and bought a gold bracelet for my mother and a new phone for my father. When I gave them the gifts, they tried to say no. But I said, this is just the beginning. You both believed in me before, I believed in myself. I can never repay you, but I can try. My mother cried. My father placed his hand on my shoulder and said, you made us proud. That moment was more valuable than the job, more powerful than any paycheck. If you have made it this far in the video, I want to tell you something from the bottom of my heart. I am not special. I didn't go abroad. I didn't spend thousands on courses. I didn't have perfect grammar. I didn't have a private tutor. What I had was a reason. A reason to learn. A reason to push through. A reason to keep going, even on the hard days. So if you are struggling with English right now, if you feel like giving up, if you have failed before, I am here to say, don't quit. Create your own method. Make your own rules. Practice every single day, even if it's just for 15 minutes. Talk to yourself. Think in English. Write stories. Watch movies with subtitles. Repeat what you hear. Make English a part of your world. And most importantly, believe that you can do it. Because I promise you, the pain of effort is temporary, but the pain of regret lasts a lifetime. Choose effort. Choose growth. Choose a new future. Your journey to fluency starts now.